I built my first business at 13. By 19, I was debt-free. By 24, I bought a house in cash. And then my parents sued me because they said I stole the life my brother deserved. But they didn't just sue. They tried to destroy my reputation, sabotage my contracts, and turn my community against me. They thought I'd fold. They thought I'd pay them off to make it go away. Instead, I made sure they regretted ever saying my name in court. If you've ever been the irresponsible kid who got punished for succeeding, stay with me, because the way this ends is the kind of justice people think only happens in movies. My name is Ethan Ward. I'm 29, and I grew up in a small town outside Toledo, Ohio, where the biggest excitement was a new restaurant opening at the strip mall. My dad, Gary, worked maintenance at a packaging plant. My mom, Linda, did part-time shifts at a pharmacy. And my older brother, Logan, was the main character of our family's story. Logan was 2 years older than me, good-looking, loud, confident. He played football, got away with everything, and always had an excuse that made my parents nod like he was a genius. If Logan forgot to do something, it was because he was busy. If I forgot, it was because I was lazy. If Logan got a C, he had potential. If I got an A, I was told, don't get a big head. I learned early that I wasn't the kid they wanted. I was the kid they used. The only place I felt normal was the computer lab at school. I wasn't a tech genius. I wasn't some movie hacker. I just liked taking broken things and making them work again. Old phones. Trash laptops. A printer nobody could fix. I'd sit there after class with a screwdriver set and YouTube tutorials, and for the first time all day, my brain felt quiet. My shop teacher, Mr. Keenan, noticed. He was one of those older guys who looked like he'd seen every kind of kid and knew which ones were fighting battles at home. One afternoon, he said, "You want to earn real money? Start by solving real problems." I laughed like he was joking. He wasn't. That weekend, I was walking home and saw a sign outside a local diner, cash register down. Need help. I walked in and asked the owner, a woman named Pam, what was wrong. She pointed at a dusty register and said, "It freezes every time we try to close the day. My guy wants $300 just to look at it." I told her, "I'll try for free. If I can't fix it, you lose nothing." She stared at me like I was insane. I fixed it in an hour. Corrupted software file. Simple restore. When the register booted up and printed the daily report, Pam actually shouted, "Are you kidding me?" She pulled out her wallet and handed me $40. I tried to give it back. She said, "No. Take it. And write your number down." That's how it started. Not with a grand plan. Not with a business pitch. Just a kid who wanted to solve problems. Within a month, Pam's cousin called me. Then her cousin's friend. Then a bar owner. Then a small auto shop. Everybody in town had the same issue, old systems. Cheap equipment. No support. No patience. And I had something that mattered more than talent. I cared enough to try. At 13, I didn't even have a bank account, so I hid my cash in a shoebox under my bed. At 14, I was making more than my mom did part-time. And that's when my parents started paying attention. Not proud attention. Not, "We believe in you" attention. Predator attention. The first time my dad saw me counting money, his face changed. Like he'd been watching a TV show and suddenly realized it could become a paycheck. A week later, my mom sat me down at the kitchen table with that fake soft voice she used when she wanted something. "You're doing well," she said. "And we're proud. But you need to contribute." I was 14. I said, "Contribute how?" She slid a paper toward me. A list of bills. Rent. Utilities. Groceries. My dad leaned back in his chair and said, "You live here. You eat here. Time to act grown." Logan, sitting on the couch playing a video game, didn't even look up. I asked, what about Logan? My mom smiled like I'd made a silly joke. Logan is focusing on his future. And just like that, I understood the rules. Logan's future was an investment. Mine was an opportunity to be exploited. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I just started keeping my money quiet. I opened a student account the day I turned 15 with help from Mr. Keenan, because he noticed my mood shift and asked one question that changed everything: are they taking from you? I tried to laugh it off. He said, kid, I've seen this before. Protect yourself. So I did. I started depositing only part of what I earned and hiding the rest. And the more I hid, the more creative my parents got. When I turned 16, my dad demanded I start paying rent. When I turned 17, my mom said I should cover the family phone plan because you're the one who uses internet the most. When Logan wanted a car, my parents looked at me like I was a bank. You can help, my dad said. Help. Not offer. Not ask. Help, like I owed it. And I want you to understand something, this wasn't one big dramatic moment. This was years of little cuts. Little drains. Little guilt trips. They trained me to feel selfish for wanting my own life. I stayed quiet because I thought, when I turn 18, I'm gone. That's it. But the universe has a way of punishing naive optimism. Because 2 months after I turned 17, I got a letter in the mail. It looked official. It had my name printed clean on the front. I opened it and saw the words, past due. Final notice. My stomach dropped. It was a credit card. In my name. I didn't open it. I didn't sign for it. I didn't even know it existed. Then a second letter. Then a third. Then a fourth. I sat on my bed in shock, spreading those papers out like I was looking at evidence from someone else's life. Total debt, $31,842. I couldn't breathe. I walked into the living room and put the letters on the coffee table. My dad glanced at them like they were junk mail. My mom didn't even pretend to be surprised. Logan actually smirked. I said, why is this in my name? My mom sighed like I was being difficult. Because your credit was clean, she said. And we needed help. I felt my whole body go cold. You used my identity. My dad said, don't be dramatic. Family helps family. I whispered, that's illegal. Logan finally looked up and said, relax, man. You're good at money. You'll figure it out. That's when I realized something that changed my life forever. They weren't scared of me finding out. They were annoyed that I wasn't grateful. I went to my room, shut the door, and stared at the wall until my vision blurred. Then I called the only person I trusted. My cousin Trey. Trey was the kind of guy who didn't sugarcoat. If the truth was ugly, he'd hand it to you raw. I told him everything. He was quiet for a long moment and then said, Ethan, that's not family drama. That's identity theft. I said, they're my parents. He replied, and you're their victim. That night, Trey picked me up and drove me to his place without asking permission from anyone. I brought a backpack. My laptop. My shoebox cash. And one photo of me as a little kid, smiling, before I learned love could be conditional. At Trey's kitchen table, he looked me dead in the eye and said, you have two choices. You either let them bury you, or you get ahead of them and protect your future. I asked, how? And Trey said the words that started the chain reaction that would eventually lead to a courtroom, a lawsuit, and my parents' lives falling apart. First, we gather proof. Then we take your control back. Because here's the part nobody warns you about, the moment you stop being useful to people like this, they don't suddenly become loving parents. They become enemies. And my parents? They were about to show me just how far they were willing to go to keep their claws in my life. Trey didn't let me spiral. He sat me down like a coach before a championship game and said, rule number 1, you stop reacting emotionally. You start moving strategically. That night we made a list on a yellow legal pad. 1. Lock my credit. 2. Separate my money. 3. Document everything. 4. Get legal advice. 5. Don't warn them. Because warning people like my parents doesn't make them stop. It makes them hide the evidence. The next morning, Trey drove me to school like everything was normal. Then, after my last class, we went straight to a local credit union where his mom knew the manager. I opened a new account in my name only. New debit card. New PIN. No mail sent to my parents' address. Then we called my employer. Yes, I had one. I was doing weekend IT work for a small business that paid me under the table at first, then legit once I got older. I changed my direct deposit immediately. And when I finally logged into my old account, I saw something that made my stomach turn. A withdrawal from the ATM at 2:14 a.m. the night before. I hadn't touched my card. My mom had. The realization hit me like ice water. They weren't just using my identity for credit cards. They were still actively draining me, even after I left. Trey stared at the screen and said quietly, "They're not going to stop until you force them." So we started forcing them, one step at a time. That same day, Trey's mom helped us file a fraud alert and lock my credit through the major bureaus. Then we pulled my full credit report. And that's when I found out the debt wasn't just a credit card. It was a web. 2 credit cards. I didn't open a store card from a furniture place. I'd never stepped foot in a payday loan, a utility account tied to my parents' address, and a cell phone line that wasn't mine. Every account had one thing in common: my name. My social security number. Their spending. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the papers. Trey said, "Ethan, this isn't a mistake." He was right. This was a lifestyle. And I was the one funding it. That weekend, we went to a free legal aid clinic in Toledo. The waiting room was packed. People with eviction notices, custody issues, debt collectors. I felt out of place until I realized something: I wasn't special. I was just another person getting crushed by someone else's choices. A lawyer named Ms. Calder sat with us. She was in her 40s, sharp eyes, and she didn't do pity. She flipped through my documents and said, "This is identity theft." I swallowed. But they're my parents. She didn't even blink. Being your parents doesn't give them the right to commit crimes using your name. Then she asked, "Do you have proof they did it?" And that's when the fear turned into focus. Because proof? Oh, I had proof. I had the texts my mom sent me when she'd say things like, "Send $200 now or we'll lose the lights." You're acting grown, so act grown. Family comes first. And the biggest one, the one that made Ms. Calder's jaw tighten: "We used your credit because it was clean. Don't make this a big deal." Ms. Calder leaned back and said, "You have options. You can file a police report, dispute the accounts, and pursue a restraining order if necessary." My chest tightened at the word police report. I wasn't ready to do that. Not because they didn't deserve it. But because part of me still wanted my parents to suddenly become parents. Ms. Calder must have seen it on my face. She softened her tone, just slightly. Then start with protecting yourself financially. Dispute what you can. Cut access. Document everything. And if they escalate, you respond with the legal system, not emotion. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling at Trey's place thinking, if I do this, if I really protect myself, my parents will say I'm selfish. They'll call me ungrateful. They'll tell everyone I abandoned them. And then I realized they were going to say that anyway. So I stopped caring about being the villain in their story. And I started writing my own. Over the next few months, I lived like a ghost. School. Work. Trey's place. Repeat. And I built my business quietly. I didn't even call it a business yet. I just fixed what people needed fixing. But my reputation grew fast. I wasn't flashy. I was reliable. And in small towns, reliability spreads faster than gossip. By 18, I was installing POS systems and inventory software for small shops, hardware stores, auto parts shops, local bars, even a small chain of mini-marts. And this time? The money went to me. Not to my parents. Not to Logan. Me. That year I made a decision that would change everything. I formed an LLC with Trey's help and a cheap online filing service. WardTech Systems LLC. It wasn't about sounding fancy. It was about creating a wall between my future and my parents' hands. New business bank account. New EIN. Separate books. And I made a spreadsheet that became my religion: debt payoff. Every dollar that came in. Every dollar that went out. Every minimum payment. The first month, I paid $400 more than I had to. The second month, $600. By the time I turned 19, I had paid off a chunk of debt that should have taken years. And here's the crazy part: once my parents realized my money pipeline was gone, they didn't ask why. They attacked. It started with my mom calling repeatedly, leaving voicemails like, "Ethan, stop being dramatic. Come home, we can talk. Logan is stressed, don't add to it." Logan texted me once, "Bro, you're doing too much. Just help out." That's what family does. That message made me laugh so hard I almost choked. Family? When was I family? When I was a credit score. When I was a bank account. When I was a scapegoat. I never responded. And then they switched tactics. They showed up at Trey's place. My mom stood on the porch crying like she was auditioning for a Lifetime movie. My dad's face was hard, tight jaw, like he'd already decided I was his enemy. And Logan? Logan stood behind them, arms crossed, smirking. My dad said, "You're coming home." Trey stepped outside next to me and said calmly, "He's 18. He's not a dog you can call back." My dad ignored him and stared at me. "You think you can just leave and take your money with you?" That was the moment it clicked. He didn't miss me. He missed the control. I said, "You told me to act grown." My mom snapped, "We meant responsible, not disrespectful." I looked her in the eye and said, "You opened accounts in my name. That's not parenting. That's theft." Her face changed. For half a second, I saw fear. Then she went right back to anger. "Don't say that word," she hissed. "You're going to ruin us." And I realized they weren't scared of hurting me. They were scared of consequences. My dad took a step forward, voice low. "You're going to pay it off. You're going to fix this. And you're going to stop acting like you're better than us." Logan chuckled and said, "Yeah, little man. You think you're smart now." Something inside me went quiet. Not rage. Not fear. Just clarity. I said, "I'm not fixing anything anymore." My mom's voice rose instantly. "How are we supposed to survive?" I answered, "The way adults do." Silence. And then my dad said the line that still echoes in my head, "If you don't help us, we'll make sure nobody helps you." That was the threat. That was their promise. And they meant it. Because a week later, one of my biggest clients called me, confused. He said, "Ethan, your mother just showed up here." My blood ran cold. "What did she say?" He hesitated. "She told me you're unstable. That you stole money from your own family and that your business is basically a scam." I gripped my phone so hard my hand hurt. My mom was trying to poison my work. Trying to destroy the only thing I built without them. And right then, I knew, this wasn't just about debt or bills. This was about ownership. They couldn't own my money anymore, so they were going to try to own my reputation. And if they couldn't own that, they'd try to burn it down. I didn't panic. That was the biggest difference between the old me and the new one. The old me would have tried to explain. Apologize. Smooth things over. The new me opened a folder. Because while my parents were busy running their mouths, I was building something far more dangerous to them than money. A record. Every voicemail my mom left. Every text from Logan. Dates. Times. Screenshots. And then Trey did something I'll never forget. He said, "Let's stop guessing what they're doing, and find out." A friend of his worked at a small collections agency. Not illegally, just legally nosy. We ran a background pull on my parents' address. And that's when the final piece fell into place. The reason they were so desperate. The reason they needed my credit. The reason they were trying to sabotage me. They were already drowning. Behind the scenes, my parents were *3 months behind on their mortgage *facing utility shutoff notices being sued by a furniture company and, this part mattered most, under review for loan fraud. They hadn't just used my identity casually. They'd used it to keep themselves afloat while pretending everything was fine. And Logan? Logan had been denied credit everywhere. So when my business started making real money, they saw it as their bailout plan. Not help. Ownership. That's when Ms. Calder told me something that changed everything: you don't need to attack them. You just need to stop protecting them. So we filed. Not revenge. Not drama. Fraud disputes. Identity theft affidavits. Cease and desist letters. And one very calm, very professional notice stating, any further contact with my clients or attempts to interfere with my business would be documented and pursued legally. I didn't tell my parents. I let reality tell them. The first domino fell fast. Every fraudulent account was frozen. Then closed. Then flagged. The debt, their debt, stopped touching me. And once the bank stopped calling me, they started calling them. My mom called me screaming. Not crying. Not apologizing. Screaming. You ruined us. They canceled everything. How could you do this to your own family? I replied calmly, I didn't do anything. I just told the truth. That's when she said it. The sentence I will remember forever. You were supposed to take care of us. I answered, I was your child. Not your retirement plan. She hung up. 2 weeks later, my dad showed up alone. No Logan. No mom. Just him, older, smaller, tired. He didn't yell. He said, we raised you. Don't we deserve something? I looked at him and said, you already took it. He had nothing else to say. A month after that, I paid off the last dollar of debt. And for the first time in my life, every cent I earned belonged to me. At 23, I walked into a closing office and bought a small house. Cash. No mortgage. No cosigner. No family help. Just my name on the deed. When I posted one single photo, nothing flashy, just keys in my hand, the messages exploded. Friends congratulating me. Clients proud. And then Logan texted. Must be nice, living the life that should have been mine. I stared at the message for a long time. Then replied with one sentence, I built this while you were spending my credit. Blocked. That was the last time I spoke to any of them. Here's what happened next. My parents lost the house within a year, Logan moved back in with them, then got kicked out. My mom tells anyone who listens that I abandoned them. My dad tells people I forgot where I came from. They're not wrong. I forgot the place where love was conditional. Where support came with a price. Where success was treated like theft. And I replaced it with something better. Peace. Because here's the truth nobody tells you, some people don't want you to succeed. They want you to succeed for them. And the moment you stop being useful, they call you selfish. If you ever had to grow up too early. If your family treated you like a resource instead of a person. If you walked away and finally built something on your own. You're not heartless. You're free. And freedom? That was the life they never deserved.